Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. This is the third part of my exam experience and review series in which I'll be sharing my experience related to economic and social issues paper, and this will be the last video in this experience series for RBI Grade B Phase 2 2024. Before beginning this video, if you ask me overall feedback of this paper, I'll just say that ESI was ESI. It was quite unexpected lines. It was expectedly unexpected, and it was difficult, no doubt. It was tough, but more specifics regarding this year's paper, I'll be discussing it in the later part of the video. So before coming to the main part of the video, I think these are few relevant videos which I think will be useful for those who are appearing next year, who have appeared this year and want to gauge their performance, so they'll get a little bit of idea. Since I've tried to pool most of the questions and recall and frame the questions which were actually asked in the examination and the answers as well, as far as I was able to find, and these you can find in this part 1 of the video in this series, which is finance management, part 2 English. These two videos are uploaded. This is my experience with respect to phase 1 examination of this year, which will also be useful for someone who is attempting next year or someone who could not clear this year, so they can also watch this video. These two video is related to my previous two interviews of RBI Grade B, which will be useful for those who are preparing for interview this year and also in future. So coming to the paper experience, you must be knowing that this paper is in two parts, just like FM, 50 marks objective, 50 marks subjective or descriptive paper. These two sections you cannot attempt at the same time. That means first 30 minutes are given for objective section, in which you can only see all the questions of the objective and you have to attempt them in 30 minutes. And once 30 minutes are over, you move to descriptive section and you cannot go back to objective section. So in the objective section, I personally felt that the objectives were difficult this year compared to what it was in the previous 2 years. Reason being, although ESI objectives are known to be tough, unexpected, random, factual, but this year they took it to the next level. So coming to my paper experience of this year of ESI, so although I've indicated before that it was tough, no doubt, but if I talk specifically about the objective section, it I feel was bit tougher than what it was in the previous 2 years. I think there was, more randomness compared to what it used to be in the previous years, because even the reports which were asked, they were asked in really, you know, good depth, I would say, and there were multiple statements related to reports which people usually either they skip or they find it difficult to recall exactly. So that way, I think there was more randomness plus depth in this year's objective paper, slightly more than what is used to be in the previous 2 years. Although ESI objective is expected to be on those lines, but I just feel it was a little bit tougher compared to previous 2 years. Why I think like that will be more clear when I come to the marks analysis section of this video. But for now, as per my instincts and what I felt in the examination, I think it was a little bit more difficult than what was asked previously. Questions were more indirect. This is although the usual trend, but there were some questions, which I think the share of indirect questions has increased this year. Questions were statement based, they were more factual. But this is something different which I observed this year. Two questions were there, although they were one markers, but this was related to static concept in ESI, and it was more of an application based static concept. It was not uh, a one liner static. It was an application based, and it required you to understand the concept and apply it in those situations. So this is something new which I saw in ESI this year, which was not a usual thing to notice in ESI paper. So this is one observation for objective section. And coming to descriptive section now, so descriptive was more generic and straightforward compared to last year, which was very, they asked report in 15 markers. The question was in context of RBI report, the question was in context of World Bank report. So those kind of questions were there last year, and which impacted the descriptive score of most of the aspirants, which is evident in the data which I'll be showing you. So this year I think it was little bit on the easier side compared to previous year, but the performance of the candidate depends on lots of other factors. But keeping all other factors constant, I think it was on the easier side and doable side. However, the challenge with these kind of generic question is you are required to present a very diverse perspective in these kind of questions, and you are required to cover more number of points, or expected to cover more number of points. One of the inherent challenges which comes with these kind of questions, and this is something which is a factor which impacts the marks of candidates who are appearing in the examination. So this is one thing which one needs to keep in mind while assessing their performance. Coming to the list of questions, so I have tried to recall whatever questions I can remember. I have also tried to research on the internet and from different sources, pool whatever questions I can, and I have collected 19 questions in 2 markers out of 20 questions which are asked. Now, I know that the sequence of questions may differ in each paragraph, and for few questions, I am not sure these questions were part of which paragraph, but I'm pretty sure that these questions were asked in the examination in 2 markers. And wherever I'm not able to recall the questions, I have put the answer of the question which is there. So let's go through them. As you know that just like FM, the 2 markers in ESI are also paragraph based. So you have a paragraph, and on the basis of paragraph, you're given certain questions. Unlike FM, where I said that you could find some of the answers in the paragraph itself, in ESI there was no scope of finding answers in the paragraph itself. So paragraph was just to give you the context and understand what the report or the event they're talking about. On the basis of that, there was a question on event, and you'll have to answer those questions. So let's start. So first question was a paragraph which was related to World Economic Forum event in 2024. So this question, I think it must have had 4 questions, but I can only recall 2 questions which were directly related to this paragraph. There could be more questions to this. In fact, there were more questions to this, but I'm not able to, uh, categorize those questions specifically related to this subject. But if someone can help me with this, then it's well and good. But anyway, I'll give you all the questions which I could remember.
So let's start the 2 markers question. So the first paragraph was related to the annual meeting of World Economic Forum. So in this paragraph, they gave a context about this meeting, and then they asked that uh, this meeting was held in dash, and then the sentence continued. So the first question was related, what would be suitable answer for this blank? The answer was the conference is held in Davos. But I knew this fact regardless of the coaching material contents. So this is something which I answered on the basis of my pre-existing knowledge base. Second question was 3 statements. In this 3 statements, you had to, different combinations of options were there, like 1 and 2 correct, 2 and 3 correct, all correct, 1 and 3 correct. These kind of combinations were there. The first statement was the network partner of this event is, they mentioned like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, something like that. And then the second was institutional partner is World Economic Forum, or some institution's name was mentioned here. And the third statement was it was launched by Prime Minister Modi in 2024. Now, there was an initiative. This statement was related to an initiative which was related to gender equality and which was announced on this platform but was launched by PM Modi. This So the statement mentioned that this initiative was launched by PM Modi, and some maybe month or year was mentioned. Now, what I'm seeing that in these kind of questions, most of us mark all as the correct answer to be on the safer side, and I have also marked all in this question. But from what I can understand, that all is not the right answer for this question because it was not launched by PM Modi. It was launched by Smriti Irani, I think. It was in the news. I checked it later on the internet, and that is why I think the correct answer will be only one and two correct. The third statement was wrong. This paragraph probably had two more questions, but I'm not able to recall exactly in what context those questions were asked. So I have covered them in a separate section, so you'll get to know, and maybe if you can remember, you can put the right questions in this paragraph from that particular section. Another paragraph was related to economic survey. So a paragraph was given here in which it was told that India need to create 78 point dash survey has stated that India need to create 78.5 lakhs job by 2030. So this was a paragraph. These were the contents of the paragraph. And the questions that were related, first question was this, that what is the name of the survey? Answer was economic survey. Second question was, what is the growth of the agriculture sector in the past 5 years at the average growth rate? So answer was 4.1% for this. Third question was, India needs to create 78.5 lakhs jobs by 2030 in dash sector. So the answer was non-farm sector. Then another question related to agriculture sector was India is the largest producer. So it was like two blanks were there. So this asked, I think, second largest producer, and this mentioned the largest producer. And whatever the combination it was, whatever the combination might have been, the cotton and pulse, this was the right combination. Because I clearly remember rice, milk, these kind of combinations were not fitting at all. So on the basis of that, I did a little bit of elimination, and cotton and pulse option was the only suitable option which I could find. None of them was also one of the options, if I remember. But I think cotton and pulse is the right answer for this question. And lastly, I'm not sure whether this statement was part of this paragraph only because I'm doubting it because they don't ask more than four questions from one paragraph because there are five paragraphs. But I'm not able to, categorize this question with club this question with some other paragraph. So I put it here. The question was that growth of the Indian economy has changed from agriculture based to more service sector based. This was the statement, and service sector was the answer for that question. So if someone can confirm regarding this question, it would be great help. Yeah, and again, for this question as well, this is something um, which I had read somewhere. I'm not, yeah, this was part of the uh, some of the documents which I was preparing this year. So I read it over there. This question, something which I solved with my general knowledge base, which I had, that the ranking of India in different agricultural commodities. Non-farm sector was something which made sense if you read the context of the paragraph. Economic survey, if you have read it, then you can take a guess. This is a guess which you could have taken. Service sector is again, it's a general understanding which you could have taken a guess. So these kind of questions form part of educated guesses. Coming to the third paragraph, which was on World Development Report. So there were four questions in this. So maybe a little bit of statements can be mixed up, but in general, what was the idea that they were trying to check that I can convey through whatever I can recall. So first question, there were three statements, of which first question was something like there were 108 countries in this middle income trap. Second was two by two, every two out of three person in these, you know, middle income trap countries, they live in poverty. I mark this as red because I am not sure whether they mention only poverty or extreme poverty. So this is a doubt which I have. If you remember, if they mentioned extreme poverty, then you can please comment. And if you remember that they mentioned only poverty, that also you can comment. So these are the one more statement was there. I don't remember what was that statement, but three statements were there, and then on the basis of this, there were a combination of options that were required to be marked. Second question was director of the report. Now I bet that hardly even 1% of candidates would know answer to this question, but I took guess in this question, and the reason of taking guess was, I'll tell you that there were five names given. Two names out of those five, they were Indian names. So one of the name was Somik Vilal, and another name was, which was the fifth option, that was also Indian name. This was the second option. So this was just I had to take a guess between those two Indian names. So I took guess of Somik Vilal, and it turned out to be correct. So that this is kind of a hit or miss kind of question. I took a guess when I had two options, and luckily it got correct. So this is one thing I like to highlight here. Third question was again three statements, and then you had to mark the right combination out of these three. The first question is that this report mentions about three eyes, and the full form of eyes was given. So it mentioned about three eyes and the full form of three eyes, which was correct. I don't recall exactly what is the full form is, but when I read the statement, I was able to relate that yes, I read something like this. That was correct. Second was the generic statement, which they said the report talks about balance between creation, preservation, and destruction. So when I was reading this question, I was really focusing on this word, that destruction. I don't know. I just thought it is very negative, and maybe the statement could be wrong. Third is, but actually the statement is correct. Third was related a generic statement on women participation. So this was also correct. So for this, all was the answer. Last question, I think this was the first question, in fact, of this paragraph. So this question was what is, there was a blank, and then what is the trap that the report talks about? So middle income trap was the answer for that question. So these are the four questions related to World Development Report. Some of them are really, really tough. And except this question, if someone has read this report, so they'll be able to mark this question, maybe this question, but these two, a little bit of dicey. But since here all was the answer, so people usually take guess on all option wherever it is given. So that way, you can get to at two correct in these kind of questions. If you have read the report, if you have not read the report, then this you should have skipped. Another question was on global risk report, but this I think this was not of 2024, this was of 2023. So the first question was that this report talks about a term in which there is interconnectedness of risks which can lead to some kind of crisis. This kind of statement was there. So what was that term? And different options were there. Polycrisis was one of the options, and this was the answer. Second was the reason. It was asked what is the reason for this kind of polycrisis, and there were three statements. So all three were kind of generic statements: geopolitics, COVID. These kind of statements were there. So it's safe to take risk in calculated risk in these kind of questions where all options are generic, and you generally mark all as an answer. So all is the correct answer for that. Third question was again they asked which of the following are long-term risk or which of the following are not long-term risk. Either of that two was the question. Five options were there. All was also one of the options in those five, and although I have marked all, but all is not the answer for this question because I cross-checked and I could clearly remember at least two of the options were part of short terms or medium term risk and not the long term risk. So only one, whichever option, suitable option will be there, that will be the answer, and all will not be the answer. Another question in this paragraph was related to consequences of AI. Exact statement I'm not able to recall, but it made sense that BPO will replace Gen AI. Sorry, BPO will be using generative AI. This kind of statement was there, which is one of the advantages of AI. So this was the only thing which made sense in this question, and I think this is the correct answer for that. So these are, I think, you have 15 questions over here. And I have another set of four questions which are not related to a particular paragraph, but it might make sense in some of these paragraphs, but I'm not able to figure out which particular paragraph or what was the separate paragraph all about. So these are the four answers which I remember. So one question in which answer was a Lancet report. So this is the correct answer for that. Another was in which it talked about how many you know, targets of sustainable development goals is India lacking currently? So you'll say it's 19 out of 33. This was a wild guess which went correct. So this is correct. Third is global growth rate for 2024. It is 3.2%. And there was another question in which it was related to some portal which was developed, uh, some portal related to agriculture or exactly I'm not able to recall, which is developed with the help of which of the following institutions. So NABARD was one option, then Ministry of, MAITI was one of the options, and these kind of four or five, IT Kharagpur was one of the options. So these kind of options were there, and NABARD was the right answer for that. So these are all 19 questions which were in two markers. One more question will be there, and perhaps if you are able to recall, you can just comment that question, and that will complete the set of 20 questions of two markers in ESI. Now coming to the one markers, the thing with ESI is that one markers in ESI are also statement based. Most of the questions are statement based, and you will rarely see a one-liner in ESI one marker. In finance and management, however, you can see many one-liners in these one markers, but such case is very rare in ESI, which is what makes ESI even tougher. And that is again uh, what was observed this year as well. The trend has continued, and I have collected the themes around which questions were asked, although exact statements might vary, but little bit I'll give you an idea of how the questions were framed and what could be possible answers to those questions. So these are the 10 questions in one marker. So one question was on national carriers services. So there were three statements, and this question was basically which of the following would be eligible to get, benefit of this portal. So one exact statement is something like one apprentice was there. Then second statement was someone who wants to work in foreign country, and one more statement was there. So I think all correct was the answer for this question. Second question, this is the question which I was talking about, which was totally concept based. So they gave four statements in this question, and they asked, so they were basically trying to ask the reason for cost push inflation. And so what could be the possible reasons? So in these four, these two were wrong, and these two were the reasons for cost push inflation. For example, I remember the third statement was related to increase in input cost, so something related to that was there. So that was one of the options, and fourth statement was also correct. So 2, C and D, that was one of the combination in the option. That was the correct option. Again, this question was also based on a concept of WPI. Now, either WPI was the answer or it does not include services, something like that was the answer. So one of those two was the answer. Exact question I'm not able to remember, but this was purely, if you have read WPI, it was also concept based. So this is whatever option which is related to WPI was correct for this question. This fourth question exactly I'm not able to recall, but there were five options and one of those five statement was correct. So this was related to foreign trade policy and the benefits eligibility under foreign trade policy. And one of the statement was some statements I can partially recall that a manufacturer who has imported a good and he did value addition to that good to a certain percent and then exported it. Then another one was someone who imported it and consumed it like that. These kind of statements were there. So who is eligible beneficiary? So I'm not sure what is the answer to this question is, but this was the question all about. Then there was a question on PM Pranam, and in this question again there were three statements which I'm not able to recall exactly, but it was related to PM Pranam, probably eligibility. And then you have question on Mission Vatsalya, eligibility under Mission Vatsalya. So three cases were there. So this is also related to eligibility. Then you have PMNRF, Prime Minister National Relief Fund. So where the funds from this can be used. So three options were there, like in a wedding. Then you have all. Then one statement was the entire donation that someone makes to this fund, it is 100% tax exempt. Then third was someone who is a acid attack survivor, he can be a beneficiary to this fund. So these three statements were there. Another question was related to Agri Infrastructure Fund, that who is the eligible beneficiary for getting funds from this fund. I think three statements were there, or either five statements were there, something like that. One of the statement was a mushroom farmer in Meghalaya, then someone who want to set up a flour mill, then a pickle factory. These kind of statements were there. So it was again about eligibility. Next question was Pradhan Mantri Krishi Mandan Yojana. So there were three statements, and the question was why would someone be rejected from this scheme? So one statement was because he's 42 years old. Second was because he owns 1.5 hectare of land. Third was because he's already enrolled in PM Kisan. So I think this one was wrong. The other two were correct. Last question was on Startup India, that someone's application got rejected in Startup India. The company was established in 2015 and he's applying for some benefit in 2024. So what could be the reason? So three reasons were there, that the turnover is 75 crores. The second was it split from its parent company, and third was another related to its establishment year, that it was established in 2016. So this for rejection, this cannot be the reason. This can be reason. This I'm not sure what establishment year date was given, so this can also be a reason. And accordingly, you can frame what you can get whatever the answer was. So this completes the set of 10 questions which were one markers. You can clearly see that except these two, the remaining eight were very, very tough, and I'm not sure how many of you would be scoring more than six or seven in this 10 out of this 10. So this is what makes ESI really difficult to get high scoring, because one markers are also very difficult, and you don't have management in this paper that you can leverage some of your static knowledge and then you can solve the question. So this is uh, what makes ESI difficult, and every year this ESI section continues to stay like this. So this is on similar level, in fact, a little bit difficult to what it was the previous year. Maybe these two questions are bringing sense of relief. In the rest, in the remaining, you can take a calculated guess or some random guesses, and maybe you'll get two or three correct. But then again, it will more or less neutralize whatever you'll gain through random guesses. So if you're getting two, three, these kind of corrects out of these 10 or more than that, that's really good. That's really good attempt. Coming to the descriptive questions, I said before that descriptive questions were comparatively generic to what it was asked in the previous year. And the reason you can see is first question, let's check the 15 marks. The first question was a statement which was given by Nobel laureate. A statement was mentioned that there is a constant tussle between sustainable development and economic growth, and it related this tussle to democracy and war. So, and in this context, it was mentioned that elaborate on the conflict and balance between sustainable development and economic growth. So, this was the question. So, I attempted this question. My approach was pretty much standard, that I need to elaborate a little bit on the statement, what is given there in the first paragraph as part of the introduction. In the second, I mostly talked about the conflicts. In the third, I mostly talked about the balance, and in the fourth, this was kind of conclusion where I kind of uh, gave some of the examples where this was actually being done, how balancing was being done. So this was my approach in this question. So this was to be answered in 600 words. So I have answered this question in around 530 words, because initially my typing speed was really slow in this question. I had to think a lot, and because of that reason, I decided not to elaborate a lot and touch the 600 or 580 word limit. So I just thought I'll keep it less in this question, and that is why I stopped at 530. Second question was challenges of youth unemployment in India. It explicitly mentioned that give at least four reasons. So I took up this question because I thought I had ample points in this question, and I attempted this question. Again, it looks like a generic question, but when you actually go on and elaborate 4 points, so sometimes it becomes, oh, your points overlap and some of your examples are also overlap. So this becomes challenge in these kind of questions. But anyway, I think I did fairly well in this question. I attempted it in 570 words. Third question was 15 marker related to budget. So there were two questions in this. First question was five key digital initiatives mentioned in the budget, and you had to elaborate on that. And then second part was opportunity and challenges to India's digital sector. It was either this or either it was, you had to elaborate on the development of digital sector in India and write on opportunities and challenges. Exact question I'm not able to recall. But third question was related to budget. So you had to answer this question in this context. So these are the three questions which I think are fairly generic and doable. A little bit challenging because in these kind of questions you have to come up with really good points and you cannot beat around the bush. So you need to give the keywords related to the context, which I think will fetch you really good marks. Otherwise, it becomes really difficult and you can score really average in these kind of questions. Next 10 markers questions, fairly easy, women-led development in rural India. So there are many schemes and why is it important? What can be done? How is it being done? So you have a lot of, diversity of points to fill up 400 words in these 10 markers. So because these are to be answered in 400 words, so this is question I think I answered in 380 words. Second is AI in banking, another topic which most of us are must be familiar with. So what are the pros and cons of AI in banking? What can be, so basically you have what are the advantages, what can be the risks? So these are the area which you need to write upon. And this can also be covered easily. 400 words can be, covered easily in these kind of topics. So here also I have written around 400 words in this question. And last question was very specific. It was on National Industrial Corridor project. You had to elaborate on that. So if you have read this, you could have elaborated on that, but I think many would have skipped this because these two were more generic and people usually have fodder points related to these kind of topics. So overall, you can see that a descriptive question was relatively easy, which I previously talked. And compared to last year, if you see the questions of last year, especially the 15 markers, most of the aspirants were shell shocked when when they saw that a report is mentioned and they have not read the reports. It kind of gives a very dampening effect on your motivation and it impacts your performance in other questions as well. So this is one factor which you need to consider when you're looking at and assessing your performance in descriptive part of ESI this year. So coming to the good score, I think the methodology and everything is pretty similar to what I have been doing in previous two parts, especially the FM. So most of it is same. So I'll not take a lot of time. And straight away, I'm showing you what is the uh, stats related to the top 75 rankers in last 2 years. So this is the top 75 rankers, not in ESI, but overall top 75 rankers, so that it considers all the fluctuations and performance of other sections because some aspirants they compensate their low performance from other sections. So these fluctuations are catered for. That is why I'm taking top 75 rankers and not top 75 ESI. So just see these stats of objective in 2022 in ESI. The mean is almost 30 marks. For descriptive, it is 34 marks. So see the gap here. It is gap. The gap is around 5 marks. Yeah, gap is of 5 marks. Here you can see standard deviation is 4.5 marks. In descriptive, the standard deviation is however 1 mark less. This clearly gives you an indication how objective is distinguishing factor in ESI in 2022. R squared, the same concept which I explained in finance. It is again very high for objective, low for descriptive. So ESI was clearly objective driven this year. So which says that despite the randomness which is there in ESI paper, ESI continues, the objective part continues to be the distinguishing factor. So if your descriptive is not good, it can impact your chances of scoring good in ESI. So this is one clear inference that you can make based on the data set that I have for 2022. Something similar can be concluded for 2023 with respect to the importance of descriptive and objective. Descriptive is of course important because you see that the standard deviation is pretty less and there is not much variation between performance of candidates in descriptive, but objective is more important. So descriptive is a necessity, but it is not may not be sufficient for you to get good score in ESI. So you are required to score at least a decent mark in objective section as well to gain advantage in ESI. Another thing which you can see is this huge drop in the average scores of ESI compared to what it was in 2022 to 2023. And this drop is in both the section, objective as well as descriptive. From here 29 to 24 and from here 34 to 30. So you can see 5 marks drop here, 4 marks drop here, and overall 9 marks drop in the overall average. So this is a clear indication that the level of objective was pretty high for everyone in 2023 compared to 2022. Now, this year in 2024, it is even higher than what it was in 2023. So, what I presume that this will definitely impact the overall average of top 75 rankers in 2024 as well. And this 24 is certainly going to decline. To what extent that is, you know, that is a subjective thing, so people can have different opinions, the marks can vary, but it's a high chance that it is going to decline for sure. And speaking of descriptive section now, here you can see this -4. This is a huge drop in descriptive section. Now, this is not because of checking level, because in FM, if you see the descriptive average increased. So if they're changing the criteria for descriptive, it would probably have same impact on both the paper. But here it has declined, in my opinion, mostly because of the reports question, which was asked in 2023, which would have impacted the mentality of most of the candidates. Personally, also, if I see, which would, so personally also, if I see my score this year was 30, I think 35 it was in 2022. In this year, it was 32. So my score also declined, and the only reason was reports question because I was not able to give good points in the report or points which was relevant directly uh, and covered in the report. So that is why my scores also dropped. So I can clearly relate to this average score on the basis of that and what my performance would be in this year's descriptive, considering all of the further factors constant. So I can get an idea what my descriptive score will be. I have an idea what my objective score will be. And using that as base, I can tell you for this year, a good score in descriptive would be somewhere around 32 because this will increase for sure, maybe 1 mark or 2 mark, and this is going to decrease for sure. So this score, I think somewhere around 2021 would be a good score for objective. Now, this is good score. This is not the lowest score because the lowest score can vary. Someone can compensate from other subject and score low in this subject. That is always the case. But if you are thinking in terms of average, so this will be a kind of good score in ESI this year. But overall, if you combine both of them, so somewhere in 52 to 56, I think will be a of good range to consider for being a safe score for being in the safe zone in terms of ESI score. So if you're scoring in this range and you think you can surpass this range, so you will be at an advantage for sure. So this is all about my analysis from ESI scores. I hope this video helps you in assessing your performance and it gives you some insights about how different sections impact the selection and which section to prioritize, what should be your strategy in terms of targeting a particular score in different sections. So this is it from my side. So if you want to have any discussion, any queries, you can connect here on this group. Personally, you can mail here if you require some personal guidance, and you can always connect for help.